Dune Part 2 is the highly anticipated sequel to Dune Part 1 back in 2021, and it's yet another attempt to adapt the highly praised series from Frank Herbert and the first book of Dune. And I have really loved Dune, at least the original movie 1984 version, ever since it came out. And this will always remain a special place in my movie collection. And Dune Part 1 was something that honestly I didn't watch till recently at the time of this video. And so whenever I saw that and everything that Denis Villeneuve and everybody else was able to do, I was absolutely stunned by how incredible it was and how much I loved it. And will Dune Part 2 do something similar? Well, let's go ahead and talk about it. And so the story picks up right after the events of Dune Part 1, where Paul and Lady Jessica are heading into the desert with Stilgar, Chani, and the rest of the Fremen, and right away we run into some Harkonnen soldiers basically floating up the side of a mountain with this absolutely beautiful landscape right behind them. And that's when I knew Dune Part 2 was going to be something awesome. And in terms of other characters, most of the main characters from Dune Part 1 are here in Dune Part 2, including Stellan Skarsgård's character, the Baron, Dave Bautista's Raban, and we have some new characters in Part 2, specifically Christopher Walken as the Emperor, his daughter, Princess Irulan, played by Florence Pugh, and also Austin Butler as Fade Rotha, the youngest nephew of the Baron and the younger brother to Raban. So there is a lot here in terms of where this story is heading. And this one is more about Paul really learning from the Fremen, developing and growing into the Muad'Dib, and basically them fighting back against the Harkonnens. And then on the Harkonnen side, we're kind of seeing the demise and collapse of them, you know, specifically in their battles against the Fremen and Paul. And then we also have the whole political elements, you know, with now the Emperor being much more involved, the Bene Gesserit, and the houses coming into it. So in a lot of ways, this is basically like Empire Strikes Back, or with shades of Star Wars Return of the Jedi. And so it has a lot of those elements. And in this case, the movie as a whole, I would say, does have more action. Zendaya's character, Chani, plays a much bigger role. Timothy Chalamet's character, Paul, develops much more into the Muad'Dib, into leader. And Rebecca Ferguson as Lady Jessica, she also grows a lot in here. And, you know, there's just so many things going on in Dune Part 2 to finish off this whole first book of Dune. So getting to things that I absolutely love about Dune Part 2, well, it's pretty much very similar to what I loved about Dune Part 1, starting with the absolutely stunning visual and audio presentation. Denis Villeneuve has really assembled the best of the best. The cinematography by Greg Fraser, man, it kind of solidifies Greg Fraser as one of the best cinematographers out there. And then the musical score by Hans Zimmer is just magical. I really love everything technically about this film, the way that it looks, the way that it sounds, the way that it feels. Everybody in here feels like they are part of this world. The set designs, the costume designs, the color grading. If you love the audio and visual aspects of film and cinema, Dune Part 2 delivers in so many ways. It is absolutely a stunning experience. And then the absolutely incredible cast really brings Dune Part 2 to a level where most modern movies can't even touch. Everybody who acted in the first one, I still just say the same thing here. They do an amazing job in bringing these characters to life. But in Dune Part 2, obviously we have some new characters and new actors. Christopher Walken, Florence Pugh, I think they do a good job for what they have. But then Austin Butler's performance as Fade Rotha, man, he just knocks it out of the park. And I think that is one performance that a lot of people are going to really focus on. And at least for me, even though I thought he did a really incredible job, for me, the original Dune with Sting, honestly, I really love Sting's performance and the way that character was written. I know I might be in the minority, but he was just a fun character and actor in the original movie. And then I would say the standouts here, okay? So Timothée Chalamet did a really wonderful job in showing this progression of Paul and bringing a lot more of his acting abilities. Zendaya Chandi, she plays a much bigger role, and I think she also did a really great job. But the two characters and two actors that really brought this out, at least for me, was Rebecca Ferguson's acting as Lady Jessica and Javier Bardem as Stilgar. They were such an amazing characters and performance in this second film. And I did not expect Javier Bardem to be as funny as he is. And the funny and comical relief in here, it's different. You know, it's really natural. I really enjoyed his performance. And Lady Jessica, Rebecca Ferguson, man, she just did an absolutely incredible job in showing her progression as the Reverend Mother, and also her daughter Aaliyah, who plays a role throughout this film without really being there, except for one special moment where you kind of see her. And overall, the acting in here is just superb, the top of the top. And when I say they were good or great, compared to any other movie, they are basically untouchable in this movie. It is so good, the performances here, and it really does an absolutely wonderful job in bringing life to these characters in a way that is very human, very three-dimensional, and at the same time, they make you love these characters more and more, including all the villains in there. You love them for what they are, and you also hate them for what they are, and that is a mark of great characters and amazing acting. And then the story and world building, I would say it is much bigger in part 2, because now it's not mainly focused on Paul and Lady Jessica. Now it's them with the Fremen, with the Harkonnens, and then with the Empire as well. There is a lot here. And then when you involve all the little things, you know, the little subtleties, you are learning so much more about not only Arrakis, but mostly the Fremen, how they operate, how they live, the different factions, and why they do what they do. And in a lot of ways, you feel like you are Paul Atreides as well, because you are living and learning through this, which really gets you even deeper into this world. And then on the Harkonnen side, you kind of feel, in some ways, I would say you feel sympathetic towards them, you know? So here, they've ruled Arrakis for many decades, and all of a sudden, the Emperor and the other houses decide, well, we're gonna take all of that away from you, and you could see why they are, you know? They just took everything away from them, and, you know, that's gonna make you really angry and make you want to take revenge and take back what is rightfully yours. And also with Aed Rotha's character, man, he just shows a side of the Harkonnens that make you realize why they're so lethal and brutal. And then the whole scene with the Colosseum, that was just a really incredible experience, with this whole different look of this muted black and white look. And it is explained that because of the Harkonnens' home world, because of the way the moon is, it basically blocks out the sun. And so they get this whole white look throughout. That's why they look the way that they do. And then when it comes to the Emperor, you know, Christopher Walken, Princess Irulan, and the Bene Gesserit stuff, that's that whole political intrigue element that grows even more. And so if you did enjoy the story and world building in part 1, I think you enjoy it a lot more in this one, because it's much bigger. Now, when it comes to the action in Dune Part 2, I could definitely say if you were wanting more action from Dune Part 1, Dune Part 2 delivers. The action in here is not only bigger and more frequent, but there's also really creative ways in which they do this. Like there is a scene where they have these big spice harvesting machines. They're being attacked. You know, Paul and Shani and the rest of the Fremen are being attacked. And the way in which they battle and fight, it is really creative and fun. And it also adds a sense of tension as well, because as you're watching all these action scenes, you're watching it, but you're also being really apprehensive for like what's gonna happen. Could they die? Even though you know the main characters won't, it kind of gives you that sense of excitement, which I really enjoyed. And then when you get near the end of the movie where you have this epic action scenes, man, it is just chef's kiss. Wonderful, wonderful action. And finally, very similar to Dune Part 1, the whole cinematic experience is absolutely awe-inspiring. If you could watch this on the largest screen possible with the best sound, you will not be disappointed. There's very few films in our modern age that even come close to giving you the type of, I would say, nearly perfect cinematic experience that Dune Part 2 delivers. And I cannot wait until this is released on Blu-ray in 4K so then I could watch it many, many times at home. So if you are looking for a true cinematic film experience that will blow you away, Dune Part 2 is that film. So when it comes to potential negatives of this film, well, this is a near perfect cinematic experience for me. But there are some things that I would say are just minor. There's really nothing major at all, which would be a negative of this movie. And the minor ones are things that maybe I would wanted more of or a different approach. So the first thing is Aaliyah. And so in this case, she isn't born yet. Whereas in the original Dune 1984 film and also the Dune series on the Sci-Fi Channel, she actually was born and she played a much bigger role physically. Although in Dune Part 2, she does play a role throughout this film. It's just that she plays it inside her mom's belly. And so that one I didn't really like as much. I would have preferred Aaliyah to have been born. And then the other thing is the Baron Harkonnen, specifically the way in which things end. If you do recall seeing Dune 1984, or maybe even seeing the sci-fi series or reading the book, then you'll know how it ended for him. And the way it ended for the Baron in Dune Part 2, I didn't really enjoy as much. But overall, Dune Part 2 is yet another stunning achievement from Denis Villeneuve and everybody else involved. This is a must-see and must-have in your collection whenever it does come out. And in terms of how I feel about this movie versus Dune Part 1 and Dune 1984, it's more of a continuation. So I can't say one is better than another per se because it's part of the whole movie. However, if you did want more action, bigger world building, then Dune Part 2 does it better. And in terms of Dune 1984, well, I'll talk about that in another episode. So if you actually had any thoughts on this, be sure to leave in the comments area below. And if you did want to see my original reviews of Dune 2021 and Dune 1984, I will leave links in the description area below. And finally, if you did want to support my channel and get these movies, I'll leave affiliate links in the description area below as well. So as always, if you did get value out of this video, be sure to share, like, and subscribe, and I'll see you on another episode. Hey geeks, if you are a brand new creator and you simply want something easy to get you started, well, I got something for you with my Creator Starter Kit. This is a super simple step-by-step guide that's going to take you from having no channel to developing your very first YouTube channel, along with ideas, thumbnail designs, and other creator tips, including marketing. And the best part is, all of this is free. Simply head over to the link below, check out my page, and get started creating.